Today, Chauncey and I are setting out on a ride to Parys. No, not the one in France, the one in the Free State, South Africa. We'll be taking the scenic route, which means a bit of a detour around Randburg. Once we hit the Free State, we'll grab some lunch before making our way back home. Now, about the route planning, I use TomTom's website to map it out, and the TomTom Go mobile app for navigation. Let me just say, that app was as reliable as a chocolate teapot. It kept crashing and rerouting us, so after a few false starts and some creative language on my part, we eventually found our way. What I didn't anticipate was that the route would include a bit of sand riding. This was a new experience for Chauncey, as it was his first time riding with someone else, and also his first time riding on sand. So, it was a day of firsts for him. I was really excited to do this ride with Chauncey because I feel partly responsible for getting him into motorcycling. You see, when I first met him 2 years ago, he'd never even thought about riding a bike. But after giving him a lift on my GS, the bug bit him hard. Fast forward to today, and he's got his own Gixxer 250 Scrambler, and he's already done a solo ride to Harry Smith from Eden Vale. Talk about progress. As for me, I was exposed to motorcycles from an early age. My dad was a traffic officer in the 70s and 80s with a Suzuki GS 850 back in the day. I fondly remember helping him wash and polish his bike on Sunday afternoons. My small hands were perfect for getting into all the tiny nooks and crannies. We'd shine up his leathers, belts, shoes, holster, and of course, the bike itself. Those days people took a lot of pride in their work. After my parents split, and my mom remarried, my new stepbrother had a red Kawasaki Z400, and my best mate Jimmy got a Suzuki RM80 for his birthday. At a time when most kids were still on BMX bikes, Jimmy and I were tearing up the felt on that two-stroke powerhouse. The RM80 felt like it had all the power in the world back then. Years later, my stepdad bought a little Yamaha 80cc to save on fuel costs during the 80s petrol crisis. So, bikes were just part of my life. It was only natural that I'd end up hanging out with the biker boys in school. My parents eventually bought me my first bike, a Honda MB5, by taking over the payments from my cousin, who'd outgrown it. If I knew then what I know now, I would have kept that bike in storage. Today, a good condition one could fetch close to 50,000 rands. My mom paid 25 rand per month until the sum of 400 rand was paid up. My stepdad was a stickler for rules. I wasn't allowed to ride it since I was still underage, so he slapped a padlock on the rear sprocket. But every day after school, I'd start it up just to hear that 49cc engine roar to life. One day, I accidentally dropped it into first gear and that was the end of the padlock. I replaced it with my own padlock, so he wouldn't spot the missing padlock. And that's when my riding career truly began. Despite the ban on riding, I managed to buy an old Yamaha 50cc with my paper route money. It was a real rust bucket, but I stripped it down and turned it into a scrambler. It was ancient, dating back to well before the RZ and DT models. My parents never knew about it. I kept it hidden at my mate Francois's house, where his mum was cool with it. Later, I bought a Suzuki RG50 Gamma, a blue one with a full fairing. I needed transport when I started college, so it fitted the bill. After a couple of years of tweaking it and winning some street races, I blew the bearings and had to sell it. I then went from a 50cc to a Kawasaki GPZ 1100, a jump so big that I'm still surprised I didn't end up killing myself. Fearless and stupid is a toxic combination. That bike was a beast. After a particularly reckless wheelie stunt, and landing in hospital, I parked the bike for about a year. Met a girl, got engaged, and sold the bike. And that's the story of how I got into riding. Fast forward about 30 years, and I decided it was time to get another bike. It started as a project to build a cafe racer. Inspired by YouTube channels like Cafe Racer Garage, Revival Cycles, Racer TV, Brick House Builds, and, for the bold, I knew I wanted to create my own cafe racer. So, I decided on a Honda CB750 as the donor bike, a tribute to my old friend Jimmy, who had won before he passed away, and we had made many, many memories on our bikes. But that's a story for another video. Long story short, While working on the Cafe Racer, I ended up buying a 1981 CB750 to ride for a year or two. Later on, I got myself a BMW F800 GSA. And that brings us to today, and the reason I started this channel. See, I don't have any grand plans of becoming an influencer, or anything like that. I just want to document my rides, so that one day when I'm too old to ride, I can look back on a life lived. Like the saying goes, I'm not afraid of dying, I'm afraid of not living. And if I can inspire a few people along the way, then, that would be a good thing. Well, if you made it this far in the video, I really want to thank you for sharing this journey with Chance and me. You can get an idea of the road conditions and the number of Sunday afternoon coppers on the road, looking for trouble. Hope to see you back on the next trip.